If you're wondering what residential zones you should be developing in, then this video is going to break down the 3 zones that lend themselves best to small to medium residential property developments. Hey guys, Peter Kelly here from Little Fish Property Developments, helping you maximise the value of your land and generate wealth through low-risk residential development projects. On this channel, we share everything you need to deliver successful projects every time. So if that's something that you're interested in, then hit the subscribe button and turn the bell notifications on so you don't miss a thing. Let's jump into the video. It's important to note that areas of land are divided into appropriate authorities, into zones which various uses are permitted. So when trying to identify the perfect site to develop, it's critical that you understand the different residential zones and the specific requirements and limitations of each. The number of zones is going to depend on your local area. For the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on the 3 most relevant residential zones for property developers. These are the zones that we here at Little Fish are working within for the majority of our development projects. These 3 specific zones are areas where higher density living is encouraged by the governing authorities, meaning attaining a planning permit should be smooth sailing, providing you work within the guidelines specified within that particular zone. The first zone we're going to sink our teeth into is called the General Residential Zone, otherwise known as GRZ. In this zone, if you are wanting to build 2 or more dwellings, you'll need a planning permit. GRZ is the ideal zone to develop in as it gives you the most freedom and opportunity. It's a residential zone where small to medium developments are encouraged. Before we get too far into it, it's important to note that the zones have different levels or schedules depending on the municipality. These schedules sit below specific planning zones which still need to comply with Res Code. All municipalities are different and have slightly different objectives. This allows them freedom to achieve their desired planning outcomes. The information I'm sharing is general in nature, but it will get you heading in the right direction. You need to do your own research and understand the specific requirements of your local municipality's planning scheme. The purpose of the General Residential Zone is to encourage development that respects the neighbourhood character of the area. It's also about encouraging a diversity of housing types and housing growth, particularly in locations offering good access to services and transport. Some of the things that need to be considered in this zone include, but are not limited to, your side and rear setbacks, walls on boundaries, daylight to existing windows, north-facing windows, overshadowing open space, and overlooking. You also need to be aware of the maximum building height requirements. Building heights must not exceed 11 metres and the building must not contain more than 3 stories. And lastly, there are the minimum garden area requirements that you'll need to consider when trying to figure out what can be achieved on a site. The second zone we are going to look at is the Neighbourhood Residential Zone, otherwise known as NRZ. Although NRZ doesn't have as favourable conditions and requirements as GRZ, it still offers plenty of opportunity if you can find the right site. It's just a matter of being more diligent about the sites you select and ensuring you understand the expected requirements. The purpose of the Neighbourhood Residential Zone is to recognise areas of predominantly single and double-storey residential developments and to manage and ensure that developments respect the identified neighbourhood character, heritage, environmental or landscaping characteristics. Again, a permit is required to subdivide your land and construct 2 or more dwellings on a lot within NRZ. Some of the things you'll need to consider in this zone, which are very similar to GRZ, include the side and rear setbacks, walls on boundaries, daylight to existing windows, north-facing windows, shadowing open space, and overlooking. You'll also need to abide by the same minimum garden area requirements as the General Residential Zone. The third and final zone we're going to look at is the Residential Growth Zone, or the RGZ for short. The Residential Growth Zone isn't a zone here at Little Fish that we work within too often. It lends itself to larger scale developments. Acquiring land in the Residential Growth Zone can be expensive, given what you can achieve with the land with the ability to construct higher density developments. The purpose of this zone is to provide housing at an increased density in buildings up to and including 4 stories. It's also about encouraging diversity of housing types in locations offering good access to services and transport, including activity centres and town centres, and encourage a scale of development that provides a transition between areas of more intense use and development and other residential residential areas. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, there are countless planning zones, with the ones we've tackled being the most relevant residential zones for property developers looking to do small to medium development projects. Remember, my goal is to simply get you heading in the right direction. Ultimately, you need to find a qualified and highly experienced town planner that works within the municipality that you are looking to develop, as all municipalities can have different interpretations around some of the subjective requirements within a zone. As a residential property developer, it's important you have a level of understanding so you aren't just relying on third-party recommendations or advice. You need to be able to take the recommendation or advice and challenge it based on your own understanding. The stakes are way too high to be flying blind. Hopefully what we've shared has been of some value. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below so I can answer them. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do and turn the bell notifications on so you don't get left behind. I'm Peter Kelly, thanks for watching, and until next time, happy developing.